1, 2, 1, 2. Great. I think we can start. Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Keller. I come from a company called Roche. And in this company, we are doing now what patient needs next. So the first thing I would like to ask a bit the audience, in this context, what do you think this number is? Anyone in the audience? What could it be? Yes? No. That would be, it's going in this direction. Somebody else? No, it would be amazing, but no. No. No, it's the amount of tests we conduct with our devices. So let's put this in full screen so you don't see the mouse. So basically, I just summed it up to 3 types of devices here. The first one could be integrated in a blood bank. This is a high throughput device. And the second one is something way smaller, which could be at a doctor's office or in an ICU in a hospital. The third one is a coagulation device, which is usually integrated in an hospital. So these are the kind of type of devices. So another question for the audience. What do you think these numbers are? 120,000, 14,000 roughly? Yeah? No. That's not good. No. No. This is a different relation. This is how the client at Roche, in a perspective of development, looks like, or users. So we have 120,000 Windows clients, which is the majority, 14,000 roughly Mac kind of users, and we have, and here I can be proud of, starting at 500 deployments of Ubuntu Linux clients. So let's go back to what it means to be global. So we start with coverage of NADA and EMEA, and it's already deployed in 13 sites. So this gives you kind of the context. So coming back to these devices, some of them run a dual stack, meaning Debian Linux underneath. So usually the thing you never see, and a Windows stack which runs UI. All this Debian runs real time because you need to have actors, sensors, and it orchestrates all kind of the pipetting and the reagents pipetting, so you can perform a test run. Some of the other devices, like the Cobas Liat in the middle, is a Linux stack only. So you will have the UI and the underneath operating system as a Debian. So you would ask, why in such a landscape of a company would you need a Linux client? And this is just part of the answer. But basically, when you develop something for real time, you would like to have real time on your development environment. So Mac was kind of not a good possibility. So that's more or less the latest state or the latest picture of it. And here we have kind of a Ubuntu operating system, which is a Roche Linux client. We are talking about this one. And in these small little boxes, you have, back then it was called LXC. Now it's called LXD. And this run kind of isolated container using all the same shared real-time kernel. So that's for the context of the development. But it's not only this. When you want to integrate a new client, you need to do some engineering in a broader scale. So you can imagine, as I started to work by Roche, we could not have a Linux client laptop, because this would mean you need to integrate it to your Wi-Fi infrastructure. We could not work from home because you needed a VPN. So if you want to do all this, you needed a Windows laptop or a Mac. And this is kind of a summary of what we integrated within this project. So you have obviously real-time kernel we already had before, but it was just running onto desktop computers. And we have a bunch of security things, like you need to fully encrypt your disk if you have a laptop. Additionally, the minimal baseline, security baseline, enforced us to have an antivirus. I will come back to this right after. WebEx and Citrix is kind of integration of conferencing and virtualization if you really need a Windows application like SAP or others. That's a summary how this was all done. So you have foreman, which is kind of the orchestrator. When you say, OK, I need to deploy one new kind of client. It could be a laptop or a desktop. This is kind of the central instance. There it all gets started. Then you have an apt-ly. Who in this audience know about apt-ly? Oh, that's great. That's cool. So we choose apt-ly because it allows us to do some snapshots and publish these snapshots so we can, over time, reproduce the state of this client. And finally, you have the installation target, which is, in this case, for example, this laptop, which will run the Ubuntu. And the Ansible part, we will go a bit more in details. It means it is configured to be allowed to connect to Roche with Ansible. Here we have a nice overview how the workflow would look like. And you have to imagine we have like a big organization structure. You have like several layers of IT. You have local IT. And the local IT basically is responsible of giving you the resources like a laptop or desktop. So back then, we were not allowed to directly network boot for security reasons. So we had to come up with an idea of using an iPXE USB stick. But this is really a tiny, tiny bit. It's just 1.23 megabytes. So a lot of the people at the IT service point was asked, where is all the data? It's only 1 mega. It cannot be. It should be like gigabytes. So when you booted it from this stick, it just consumes all the configuration and templating from Foreman. So the only manual step right now for the people, and we'll go through that right after, is to enter kind of a MAC address and some parameters on which user is allowed to log in and have root permission in this target. So after that, it started a pre-seed and gets all the packages to be installed from this apt-ly server. And additionally, at the end, it will kind of configure the whole system, like installing antivirus, making various configurations. We go through after a bit. So as this takes usually 20 minutes from 0 to complete deployment, I will just start it, and I will go back at the end of the presentation. So let's just jump into how this could look like. So for this use case, we will just use a virtual environment. And here, the only thing which I need to do is to mount, basically, this little PXE boot. So here, it's already mounted as an ISO. And the last piece we need is a MAC address. So after that, we can create a new host into Foreman. Maybe I need to reconnect. I don't know. It's loading along. But I still have internet. It's good. Demo effect, sorry. This is unfortunate. Anyway. Oh, here we go. So we create a new host. We tell it RSC demo. Here we need to kind of tell what are the specificity of the site you want to deploy. So we have over 13 sites right now, and some printers default, some other. Oh, yeah, you need to. Great. Better? Yes. So some printers, therefore, some kind of configuration item depends really on the site you are. It's not uniformly kind of a printer system. So if you are in the US, it could be different printers. So we here just say we are close to Basel, which is in Switzerland, and that's where we are going to deploy this VM. Here also you have kind of the architecture, you just have one, and we have several kind of variation. We have a desktop environment, and we have what we call a headless, which is basically Ubuntu server, but we shouldn't use server. So here we can also decide to encrypt or not encrypt the disk. Obviously, if you want to automate tests, you don't want to encrypt the disk, because then you need to have a way to decrypt it. And where we have to edit it is you have to paste this MAC address, basically, and add some parameters, like which user would be root on this target deploy, and we need to define the technical ID for tracking reason. In this regard, it's myself already. Good. Finally, this is an unsupported device. Demo deploy. I think it's zoomed in. Everything is now. This is also something we needed to add. You need to make it kind of easy detection of errors. So if one field is missing, you don't want to continue, and the turnaround would be 20 minutes to say, oh, I cannot log in. So here we just detect that the user ID and the technical ID is the same. This could be potentially some error, so we just warn the end users. Good. Root password, just do a random one. Okay. Now we can just boot, and let's see how fast this goes. It will get this configuration from Foreman and should run unattended the whole rest of the installation. It goes quite okay. We just have a kind of a read instruction because if you do it with a USB stick, some pre-seeds tend to detect it as a first disk, and then you install it on your USB stick, the grub, and then you cannot boot. So we just notify the user, please disconnect the USB stick, and then we are good to go. So this is how the process would look like. And now, depending on the network and how fast it is, in a local network, it would take roughly 20 minutes. We'll not go through this. I will jump back to the slides. And at the end, we will just log in as another VirtualBox were provided yesterday or provisioned yesterday. Good. Let's see what's behind the scene. So we saw the Foreman part. Now let's dig a bit more into Ansible. For all these servers instances, we use configuration management with Ansible. And some of these tools are not so automation friendly. You don't want to type your partitioning schema into a freshly stored or created Foreman. You want to import them from code. And this is basically one of the tools which we created, which is called formal YAML. And you put everything you need for your Foreman configuration in a YAML file and just swallow it, and then it's configured already. And this means everything, like LDAP, everything. So in one command, you can have a full Foreman setup. Warnings here, this Foreman YAML is not kind of idempotent. I will give you the link where you can have a look at this tool. So this is an example of how the YAML look like. Basically, you can also inject with Jinja some parameters if you require, and this is kind of the iPXE template. Next thing, when you use apt-cli, usually it comes with a really powerful CLI, but you have to do something around. Here, it's really important. I think I have a better slide here. Missed to delete it. What is really important is you don't want, as soon as Canonical push a package, you don't want every user to have this package already the next couple of hours, because this could lead to several issues. People prevented from working is the worst thing you can happen for your reputation as a client. So what we do is we have a three-stage kind of deploy. So people will have the possibility to consume a latest stage, which is kind of basically the Canonical repository. But you have also a next stable, which is a kind of next to be promoted as stable, and you have the stable stream. Most of the user will be in the stable stream. So this is just 2 weeks behind the Canonical tree or package deploy. And then you can have, at any point of time, one of these power users using the latest or being to stable. So we reversed a bit the idea of having a kind of a CRB where we decide, do we update the repo? No, we continuously update, and if something breaks, we just raise our hands. So this is around aptly. There is a pi aptly, which is kind of also YAML-based definition on how you want to mirror, what you want to mirror, how to snapshot, and how to publish. So this is also something you can have a look at. At the end, you will see the link to the GitHub. Obviously, this is just the call of this pi aptly. So you kind of update the mirror, you snapshot if needed, you publish, and you publish updates. And if there is a kind of a promotion lock, it means you don't promote it to stable. This is just a concrete implementation. Good. Coming now to the Ansible part. Here you can have a complete list. This is how my laptop here and how the other virtual machine we started will be getting deployed. Here we can see that there are some roles which are explicitly defined for installing some packages or creating kind of an awareness that this laptop belongs to Roche, like the message of the day. And you have kind of site customization and things like VPN or Claim AV for the antivirus. And these are specifically tuned for Roche to be able to use it. This is how it's called. On the preseed level, the latest command of this preseed will just call this same Ansible. But once it's deployed, you want to regularly apply new things. So this is basically what happens in daily cron job. So when the user is connected to the snippet, when it's connected to kind of the Roche network, then it will try to update to the latest state. At the end, all the people deployed with stable should have the same version over time. You don't have one having an old version if obviously they are connected. Good. When you deploy it overseas, then a new kind of bunch of problems or challenges occurs because you have your aptly server, which is just local and in Europe, and you have huge latency to the California Bay. So what we deployed there are some squid proxies. These squid proxies, they are just here to also allow the people from the US to consume the same kind of deploy, not taking 40 or 1 hour, 40 minutes or 1 hour, but taking also 20 minutes because all the packages are cached with a squid, the proxy. Other good metrics to have about the deployment is being able to answer the question, how many of your deployed Ubuntu clients have this old kernel? And for doing this, we integrated OS query with file bits reporting to a kind of an elastic stack to be able to kind of answer this kind of question from security when there is a big issue. Obviously, you can do much more with OS query and make some statistic about the package installed and so on. As we are in a regulated environment, we cannot just say, yeah, we deploy it and we will see if it crashes or not. So we had to ensure that the qualification of the environment is continuously proven. And this is how testing works. So basically, each and every synchronization with Canonical will trigger kind of a new VMware image and inject the configuration of a REST API to the foreman. This will go through the normal boot process of staging a new RLC or client, and then we run a bunch of molecule tests. Here, I didn't specify the rest of the steps, but obviously what you want to do is inject the results of this in the kind of quality measurement. So we have, back then and in the future it will may change, we have like HPLM, which is then the central place where you can just get your requirements and you can get your tests. And any person at any time can just generate a PDF of it. If any of these tests fails, it will prevent promotion, and we get alerted. So it means nothing will be broken for the users. Here we come to the lessons learned. So I put just a line at the end, which is challenge the status quo and prefer open source tools. And this is not something we can decide at the beginning. So when you start and bootstrap a Linux client in a big corporation, you usually come up with predefined infrastructure. Like antivirus was a must. We had an preferred solution antivirus. This did not cope well with real time. It froze randomly the laptops or Linux. At the end, we were allowed to use ClaimAV. And this is really good, but sometimes ClaimAV, if it had a lot of scans to do, it also starts to consume 100% of one CPU, and then your fan of your laptop starts to be used extensively. So CPU limit is also some kind of good remark here. Pulse Secure, this is VPN. VPN guarantees to run under Ubuntu, and when you download the Debian package of them, then you see that you need to repackage it. It has user interactive questions, so you cannot upgrade it seamlessly in the cron job. So if some are also using this, I can share most probably how to repackage it. Centrify DC, this obviously you want to be single sign-on, use the same infrastructure as the rest of the client. And here also, despite that Centrify supports Linux and Ubuntu, we had to hack our way around with PAM, because sometimes the PAM stack broke. Some other weird effect is when people are allowed to work from home from extensive point of time, if they don't connect regularly, the cache does not get updated. But worse than that, if there is a cache problem or a Centrify problem, usually the cache is flushed. And when it's flushed, you cannot log in anymore. So these are the kind of thing you get into when you stumble upon. Foreman automation. This is a general remark. Automate as much as you can. Foreman didn't came with a sane way to load. I don't know. I didn't follow the project so closely right now. But this is kind of the Foreman YAML we talked about before. Aptly, it's great, but if you have like 2 or 3 years and a lot of snapshots, beware that cleaning up the level DB consume a lot of RAM. This is most probably not an aptly problem, but a level DB problem. Shorewall, this is just a side note. It's not that it's not working. Also, it's quite good. Unfortunately, it's not good for any user. It's sometimes really, really complicated to explain it to some user. Basic firewall routing with Shorewall. And therefore, you get a lot of feedback telling, oh, this is too complicated. How do I expose my Docker whatsoever? Finally, automation of aptly is something which you don't want to rewrite over and over. And have a look at this PyAptly source code. So now we can definitely say that time changed. Like even in a big kind of Microsoft affine environment, you can bring in Linux, and we can say Roche loves Linux. Here, I would like to thank quite some people who participated in this project. You will see the Foreman YAML and the PyAptly are developed by a company called Adfinis, and a bunch of these people came and worked with us from the Adfinis side group. That's about it. If you have any question, this is my last slide. We can go back if you have 1 minute and see how it would look like. So the pre-seed, as expected, not a fast connection I have, is still going on, but this would finish somehow. We have one other running, which I staged yesterday. So what's a normal user when he gets his laptop or his desktop? Obviously, I already went to try it out yesterday, but he could just, or we could just do a reboot afterwards. So I'm going to log in. Here, a last task that the user needs to do is call a script called postinst. And this is a bit, maybe it can be beautified in the next version, But this is necessary because you need a user to log in, so you can deploy a user key per user for the VLAN. So this is basically user specific things. When you execute this script, it also changes the default encryption key, and then you are good to use it. So this would look like a finished installation. Now, any question? Yep.
Just a quick question: do you have a way that, for example, if Ansible doesn't run for several days, and you connect the client from the network, or can you to follow up two old clients, or the way you do that?
No, what we do is at least notify the user when Ansible gets broken. Like people are root. Obviously, you don't want to make some ticket to get root access to your client. So you are root, but you have great power, great responsibilities, and sometimes you can also break the system because you do a trip change, and then Ansible cannot write, and it just crashes. When this happens, we just use a pop-up mechanism of the operating system and say, hey, your Ansible is broken. If you do not know what you did, make a ticket, or if not, fix it. Basically, the other way around is when people don't use it for a long period of time, you want to know also, because this makes, with the time, it gets kind of outdated and it has not the latest kernel or the latest security patches. For the kernel, it's the same. We intend to track, or at least a basic way, just say how long is the uptime. If the uptime is kind of a month, you should maybe reboot, because obviously you will get some kernel updates. Any other question? Yep. No, no. The idea is, or should I repeat the question? Yeah, maybe. Sorry, I didn't repeat the previous one. So are we shipping the Ansible log to Foreman? No, we don't. What we intend to do in upcoming version is to aggregate all logs into Elastic, so we can have everything in one place. And from there, we can also do specific provider. If some other people use Splunk, we can just forward them to Splunk. So no to Foreman now. Yep. Oh, back there was another question before? Yeah. Yes. So the question was if we roll out certificates to the machine for Citrix on browser. Yes, we do. So there are different various kind of certificates. You want obviously to have the certificate so you can browse internal signed certificates from the company, and you have also the certificate which allows you to connect to the Wi-Fi. These are two. You have the machine certificate and kind of the company certificate you need to deploy, and this is all deployed by Ansible. Some of the change we did is we packaged this in a Debian packages for the kind of the certificate you want to put in etc SSL certs. That we just did a Debian package because these are not changing so often. Yep.
About your architecture with Apply, that you have only Apply in Europe and you have Squid as the first proxy. Why didn't you opt for a Apply in the United States to be deployed exactly the same way as Apply in Europe, and thus also gain some redundancy of those parts?
Yes, so the question is why did we not deploy two Appleys, one in the US and back then we thought about what happens if one of the Apply fails to synchronize, because obviously you will hit the US mirror and not the German or the Swiss mirror, and then you need to kind of have a kind of synchronization among these. So you could argue also that we could just AirSync, but Apply will not really live as an AirSync way. So we thought about a different approach. Most probably the next step would be to have something in a cloud and use a CDN in front, so it's available close to anyone. But back then we just said that caching is enough for us. And as you you have kind of a tracking of each and every snapshot you did, you can reproduce this environment also in the future. You know that at this period of time, because it's periodically updating every night or every week or every second week, you could follow and recreate. Does it answer your question? Or kind of. Otherwise, we can discuss about this proxy more. Yes? Yeah.
How long do you keep the snapshot?
The snapshots, the stable, are quite long because some systems are referring to this snapshot, but the rest we just rotate. So we don't really need the next stable things or latest, because this evolves quite fast, and you don't want to blow up your level DB for nothing. Any other question? Yes? No, for this it would be a completely different talk. We started from, it was not Debian several years ago. It was something approaching a Yocto, or it was PTX disk, for those who knows. And we did a big shift to use a Debian distribution there. And this is also partially, the configuration of your development environment is also extensively using Ansible, yes. But itself, it's a mix of Debian and Ansible, and DebConf, and this would be a completely different talk. But if you are interested, I can give you more information also. Yes. Yes. So the question was, the Centrify has some group policy. I'm not really sure. I'm not so deep into Centrify here. Is it integrated in our solution? So I can just tell what we do is we have one version which is officially supported and supporting the distribution, like 1804 LTS or 1604 LTS, and this is kind of a given from Centrify. And we had recently to update the 1604 clients. We still have some of them because they are still supported with the latest Centrify version, because we had intended to change the AD version. So it's quite coupled, but we don't update each and every version just automatically, because this could break quite easily. So it's a kind of a control change. Any other question? Two? Okay. You, and after you. Yes, the question is if we have some secret in the Ansible running on the machine. No, we don't have secrets there. We have the secret at the bootstrapping phase. So Foreman kind of has some secret which is just used, and if there are kind of generic user, for example, registering an API for getting a certificate from another system, this gets then deleted. There is no trace at the end. So you won't see any leaked password in your Ansible log, and you will not see any logs, or the user cannot get them, basically. What can be tricky is when the pre-seed runs, then you could see them as clear text. But this is usually done in another area, and these people are kind of trusted. They also have access to Foreman. And maybe in the next version, we will have something like self-service. So if you want to just stage a Linux, you will be able to. And then we need to think about integrating this to HashiCorp Vault or other solutions. Yes, we have in the back.
Did you consider alternatives to Centrify DC, like Rudder SSD? Can you slightly do Centrify?
Okay, so the question is if we considered alternative to Centrify DC. We at the time we used Samba for this. You could log in. I know that this is like 4 or 5 years ago, so we should give it a try again. But then it was definitely already used on the server running Red Hat infrastructure, so it was a low-hanging fruit. But yes, we definitely would like to use something nearer to open source only. Yeah. Welcome.
15-minute break now, so feel free to go down, get yourself coffee from here, so let's look just beside the door, and then 15 minutes. Might be able to get more answers to your questions, because we're going to be talking about Ansible Vault, password safety. So see you back in 15. Thank you.
You want to run Rudder?
Second?
You also want to run Rudder?
Yeah.
Where are you located? Are you in Kaiserslautern?
No, in Rotkreuz.
Okay.
Are you from Kaiserslautern or Basel?
I work at Helvetia in Basel.
Aha, gut.
Und der die
Ja, Kaiserslautern haben sie eine sehr große Einheit, ja. Aber wir hatten, sie haben auch eine Reorg gehabt, also denn eine von dieser Personen in der Liste musste da jetzt nach Madrid gehen.
Okay.
Also ich gehe nicht so oft mehr in Kaiserslautern.
Und wie viele Leute arbeiten da jetzt an Ansible-Reformen?
Ah, das sind so 2, 3 Leute noch.
Ah, okay.
Also es ist nicht mehr. Yes, sorry. Oops.
Do you roll root out to free use or only to developers? You said that root
Every.
access. Every. Well, that works.
Yes, but it's usually about
My personal fault, I screwed up on it. We'll get, message them and get them to put the slides on source paper at least, so we can do that. I'll speak to the Rudder people and see if I can get the slides.
Great. Oh, yeah, great. You were in the chat? Yeah, I can show you a bit more if you want. Yeah. I would like to know who would it be. Oh. Because oh, okay, that would be better, so we can just stop it, yeah?
Next speaker?
Ideal solution.
Yes.
Cover your use case for the we need you to.
You are from Frontman?
Yeah,
Oh, great.
and I would like to.
Are you oh, okay. Jacob, want to switch between often.
Okay.
Does that work? Do we have to second?
No, we only have one microphone. It's for the recording. Yeah. So the microphone is only for the recording, not for the room. It's just for the video camera.
Okay.
But yeah. Pin that on.
Everything of forward. I would like to know which parts you need to
Yeah.
Put
Put that on over there or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Grab my stuff and then we can go. And this would be amazing if it flows in because this is just kind of a pain for me.
What's your name?
Florian.
Because it's not on the schedule. Can edit here. That's.
Thank you very much. Mark,
Oh yeah, no problem.
I will have a look at you.
Yeah, it should be online.
Thank you. See you.
You want the title of the
No, just, yeah, that's already there. Just your name.
boss names?
What do you want to type? Yeah.
Boss names.
Yeah, Amit, him?
No.
No? Because this is
We are for the Rudder and Ansible.
okay, you're the.
That's
Okay.
the previous.
Then we do. There we go. Oh yeah, there we go.
This one.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Perhaps there's something to do for screen. Yeah, I'm getting noise.
Donc, moi, il va mettre 10 ans à démarrer.
Il y a du temps de démarrer, tiens.
Avec les hiérarchies, putain, encore. Oui, c'est bizarre. Comme si t'avais pas d'épisodes, quelque chose comme ça. C'est ta souris, ça. Par contre, j'ai pas le PDF dessus, tu l'as?
You have a HTML report?
Yes.
You try it?
Let's try this.
See if this works.
This is perfect. Tac. Tu le fais à la souris du coup, le truc, ou tu fais comme
Si tu veux passer à la main.
comme je veux. Peu importe. À la limite. Tu vois, est-ce que j'aurai assez de batterie?
Ouais, tu veux qu'on branche? Ta branche ça va? Script de démarrage.
Non? Oui, c'est pas grave, j'en ai tout le temps un qui chie.
Il manque la clé USB fiction.
Ferme toute cette merde. Tac, tac, tac. Allez la biche. Et du coup, on est en...
Faut que tu l'envoies sur l'autre.
Ouais, ouais, je vais le déplacer après.
Dans Vue.
C'est la full screen. Oh bâtard. Quel enculé. Tu fais comment pour changer un peu? Vas-y, le change. Il me le met pas pour écran par défaut, c'est comment on change? On met un dupliqué vite.
Bah normalement
Le
il
jet,
doit
je
y avoir un
crois.
raccourci, mais
Parce que j'ai celui-là, mais celui-ci c'est pas celui-là.
sinon tu dois avoir un menu écran normalement.
Ah putain. Yes. Ok. T'auras pas trop à tirer. Okay, so let's start. Hi everyone, I'm Florian Ganet from Sagi, and this is Victor Herry. We are both DevOps engineers at Sagi. Our main goal is to install, maintain, and secure the infrastructure of the Sagi product, either on the cloud, the public cloud, or from our physical servers. We are going to present you today the love story between Ansible and Rudder, but it's quite not only a love story.
Okay, so first to begin with a quick context. Oh, sorry. Yep. So at Sagi we have mainly our product is deploying on a platform, pretty complex platform. Each platform consists in at least 30 servers to be installed. And they all interact between themselves. They are some are clustered, some are not. They are secured with ARIA on VLAN to allow customers to work on their item inside their teams without thinking about security. So to operate and install all of that, we need automation, So it's where our jobs begins. To install new customer, to reinstall a platform when the POC ends, and to manage whole existing infrastructure and, of course, update the stack on the product. As we have a large ecosystem with Kubernetes, with Hadoop, Mesos, Zookeeper, we also install database depending what the option the customer chose. All this stack also interact between themselves and needs to be secured and configured.
So to do that, we have many challenges that we have to tackle at Sagi. The first one is to assume the installation of bare metal servers from the local to the cloud. As I said before, we have to install our servers on HPE Moonshots cartridges. We have to install them on the cloud such as OVH, and some on a public cloud like the GCP or Azure One, etc. This one big challenge is to deploy our solution from the OS to the product. That is, we use Foreman for our local deployments. Then we have to install all the Sagi products on it. What Victor just said, in fact, all the Cloudera operating system, all the tools, databases, the monitoring, the backups, etc. And the third deal is to manage all the clients and the product specifications. And we have a lot of specifications. We have clients that are totally offline. We have to manage them and keep updating them. We have multiple versions in production. Some clients run the Sagi product in production, and they don't want to upgrade each month, for example. And we have clients with proxies, and these ones are very hard for us to manage. Our first tool to do all this installation is Ansible. It's the first tool that was used to do the operation at Sagi. Why? Because it's easy to use. There are plenty full of modules. You can do everything you want. You can manage network systems. You can do only the servers configurations. You can work on local servers, on public clouds. You can do nearly everything you want. Moreover, if you are not satisfied by this, you can customize your own modules and develop if you want to. And there are a lot of interactions, like I said before. The last thing concerning Ansible is that it's very scalable. You can deploy a lot of servers, thousands of servers simultaneously if you want to. If you can speed up with this with Mitogen, for example, if you want to be much more effective. And I think I said this before, but you can do everything you want. Yeah.
Okay, so as a summary, Ansible is currently a tool of choice for us. It allows us to install everything everywhere. We may set up all servers from the basis to the complex stack. We are able to add requirements when needed for our customers, and we are able to configure our product directly. But the problem is, it also has its defects. And currently, we have more than 100 of roles. It has been developed by a developer team before the SRE teams arrive at Sagi. So there is some bad practice when first created, lots of playbook, a huge history to manage, and no, it's not automatable. I precise in Sagi context, not an Ansible problem, a Sagi problem. And our infrastructure also has its own problem, as we have appliance, cloud, Sagi cloud, etc. So we have some history to manage at this point also. So this is where the SRE teams begin in the Sagi history.
So as you can see, we need a standardization, a lot of standardization. In two big pictures, the first one is for the recurring tasks. We need to simplify these recurring tasks. If I take an example, to deploy SSH key some months ago, it could take more than 2 hours for only one SSH key when a coworker arrives or got out of Sagi. It's very, very, very long to do that manually. It could hardly be automated because of some historical issues. So we needed to simplify that, really. The second point is to get rid of idempotencies issues. Before the SRE team arrives, we had a lot of manual modifications that has been done manually on the servers. It was a real pain. And we needed to standardize all the existing platforms because we had, for 2 different clients with the same SAGI version, the configuration was not strictly the same. And it was really hard to manage for a little team of a project. And the second picture is all about the operational. We needed to get structure mastery to enhance all the access reliability. It's the same example for the SSH accesses. And we need to improve the consistency, and the big deal was the last point. We had to reduce our operation time because we are only 4 in the team, and we have a lot of servers. On our Rudder, it's about nearly 1,000 of servers, virtual machines or physical servers. And it's quite hard to do for us.
So our choice to answer this new challenge is Rudder. Why Rudder? Mainly because it's very easy to use, it's light, it's agent-oriented, so contrary to Ansible, we are able to install something on the server and have reports. There is also wide OS compatibility, and it's also pretty robust. Thanks. It allows us new possibility, like change tracking, very important in our context, to see what change, check compliance at any time. We are able to deploy new feature very easily and do massive modification in any time, contrary to the, for example, the SSH key before. We now are able to change an SSH key in 5 or 10 minutes on the whole infrastructure. And also, we are able to test and roll back very easily with Rudder, thanks to the Git directly integrated in Rudder. We are so able to version and have a compliance report to gain visibility for other people outside of the SRE. Thanks to Rudder, we are able to see, look, this server has this problem and has changed as this date, etc.
And here you can see that's the beginning of the love story between Rudder and Ansible. And let me explain why. I'm a bit spoiling what is following. First, we use Ansible. Ansible is used to deploy, after the foreman has deployed the operating system, Ansible is used to install our Proxmox hypervisors, or Ansible is using the API of OVH to deploy our servers. Okay. Each hypervisor servers came with a Rudder agent that is ready to be accepted on Rudder. The second step, Rudder is as the node accepted, and is going to do the basic setup. Is going to configure the SSH keys, is going to do the basic synchronization, to install the monitoring, the backups, and install some softwares. Then Ansible again. Ansible comes on the hypervisors. Based on its inventory, it creates all the virtual machines, it configures them. Each virtual machine comes same as the hypervisors with a Rudder agent that is doing the basic synchronization. And finally, we use Ansible to deploy all of our product to do the installation of the databases, the data lakes, the Kubernetes cluster, the Ceph cluster, everything you can imagine. And the last step is about 80% of our time. So we had not so much time to do that. So we are starting to migrate everything we have in our hundreds of Ansible rows into Rudder to simplify it and to be much more flexible and reduce the operation time.
So, as you have noticed, this is not the perfect world. So why? One of our biggest problem at first is inventory. Ansible needs an inventory to run, to know which to install, to know which server to install, the network information, and so on. it needs to know the network information, what to deploy, where to deploy, on all the specific. And so, to have this inventory, we have the possibility to use Rudder as an Ansible inventory plugin. But the problem is we cannot do that because to use Rudder as inventory, nodes has to be registered in Rudder. So it's an infinite loop. We use Ansible to deploy the nodes, but we need the inventory to deploy the nodes. But to use Rudder as an inventory, we need to have the node already in Rudder. So it's one of two problems that explain why we have this chicken and eggs problem, and it's something we are working on. To be more precise, what we have seen before is the current state after some months of work. So we are currently improving this.
So we have to automate the acceptance of the nodes. So what about the inventories? We have two ways. The first one is to use back Ansible. In Ansible, we have the inventory to create all the virtual machines. So we use Ansible to call the Rudder API to only accept the nodes that are registered in Rudder and that are in the Ansible inventory. Why? Because we don't want some virtual machines that are started with other persons, with other co-workers, to get the benefits of the rules that we have configured to be secured with some other custom rules, etc. We don't want that, so we call only Ansible for that. And the second way, for the people who don't want to use Ansible, it's only for testing. We use the Rudder interface to accept the servers manually. And for the nodes, we have some colleagues that are doing some tests, for example, on our firewalls to accept the PEP sets manually, in fact.
One of the another biggest problem we have that prevents us using Rudder directly and massively using Rudder is a security problem. Indeed, until recently, Rudder used unsafe protocol. Not totally. It uses already HTTPS to send inventories from the Rudder part, not Ansible or inventories of node, but all the report Rudder sent from its agent. But all promises, all things generated in the Rudder server and sent to the agent to be configured are in clear text. And as we had said, as we have appliance, offline system, sometimes server installed directly in the data center for the customer, we need to add a secure network over Rudder, which add a complexity stack. Fortunately, it's now solved in Rudder 6, so everything is using HTTPS. It's still some work to do because the upgrade notably is not smoothly between the Rudder 5 and the Rudder 6, but now it allows us to really migrate everything that is in the old Ansible role and playbook to Rudder. So it's I guess the main month's work for us.
So we have finished with our presentation. We wanted, before going through the questions, to thank two of our colleagues, Romain Brucker and Guillaume Trélez, that have actively worked very hard in 2019, all the year, to get this reality back. Welcome to the 20th century. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so the question is, are we using built-in directive in Rudder or we own? The fact is both. We use some basic technique, notably for SSH key, but to install many packages or compile some user information, we use our own technique we have written. Another question, perhaps? Yes? In fact, the main problem is not for the physical server, but for the virtual server. As we use Ansible, we use Prox as an hypervisor, and we use the Proxmox API to create the virtual machine. And to do that, we need to know the name of the virtual machine at to on which hypervisor as clustered, on which hypervisor it's need to be created, which RAM, quantity, etc. And so I forgot, but the question was why not using the information from the server to as an inventory. That's why at the moment we need to create the machine. We do not know, we do not have this information, in fact. Perhaps we can discuss later about that, but yeah, perhaps not. Yes?
In fact, it was very long to do the modification of the adding or the removal of the SSH key with Ansible, because we had to run it in every data center. In fact, we had and we have we still have a very difficult, very complex with a lot of IP overlap. We use ASSH to do complex proxies to route our traffic. So we had to do that changes in manually for certain servers because of the clients with proxies. It was very complex, but Rudder use HTTP connection. So it can go through the proxies for the clients, and for all the servers that are really complex to reach, Rudder goes directly to the web and reaches our server publicly accessible.
Hi. This is correct?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right.
Just checking before it goes
Yeah,
live.
because most of the guys are confused with my last name.
This is just copied from the program, but
Yeah.
there's sometimes errors in there,
Yeah.
so prefer to check before sending it to the internet.
Just get some water to have.
Have to ask, do you have any water? Do you have any water? Yeah, I'll hook you up with the... It's only for the recording, it's not for the room, but...
Okay.
If you can fit that on... Yeah, probably just around here.
By default it's unmute, and to mute it I need to push. Okay. Yeah.
Are you going into projection mode or?
Yeah. I'm just starting the slide.
Hi, thanks everyone. Apologies again for the slight delay behind schedule. I'm sure with lots of doing stuff left. Now over to me to talk about Ansible.
Yeah. So hello everyone. Good afternoon or maybe good evening. So my name is Amit and I'm here to present Ansible Vault to secure a password or SSH keys, or if you have anything secret which you don't want to publicly available when you use the Git or any SVN related stuff. Few things about me. I'm a senior software engineer at Red Hat and I'm also a member of Foreman community. So if you want to discuss anything about Foreman, Ansible, OpenSCAP or something like that, then I'm available at Foreman booth and we can have good discussion over there also. Apart from that, I love powerlifting and I'm beginner level powerlifter. So maybe this year could be, I would put on more mass and muscle. I hope so. So this is my first visit to Belgium and first postname, first config management. I hope it goes really well with me and I come next year again to present something exciting. Yeah. So this is the last talk of the day, so that's why I don't want to waste a lot of your time, because we also want to have the beer and drinks. So how many of you does not know Ansible at all? Means never ever touch the Ansible, okay? No one else? Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these slides, like control node, manage node, and what all things are there. And I'm directly going to jump on the Ansible Vault stuff. Yeah, so this I start. Oops. Have you ever done this? Yeah. Yeah, because I have seen like huge bills of Amazon, like $10,000 or something like that, because of having the secret keys on GitHub, which were publicly accessible, and the thing was that account was not monitored correctly, and just at the end of the month we got the huge bill there. So it's all about how you can secure the stuff using Ansible Vault. It's not that much fancy and complicated. The Ansible Vault feature comes with the Ansible itself, so you don't need to do anything extra, or it is not like you are going to install an extra package for that. So it's basically AES 256 encryption. So I don't see any other option like change the encryption or something like that with Ansible Vault. When you encrypt the file, you get the header like this, Ansible Vault, then Vault format versioning. I can see there are two Vault format versioning now which are available, 1.1 and 1.2. I'm sorry, but I don't know the difference between these. Yeah, I'm moving next slide. Yes, so encryption is very simple. You get the Ansible Vault, create, and the file name. The create command only works for the new file creation. If you want to have the encryption for existing files, in that case you need to use the encrypt command instead of create command, else it will fail. Many times what happens, when we encrypt the file, we tend to decrypt that one, like to see the content or modify the content. So instead of that, we can actually do the edit. So it won't save your file in the plain text format in your present working directory. So that is the last command to view the file. In read-only mode, you can use the view command. So anyone has the laptop now? If you want to try it out, then you can try it out. Now the next is variable encryption. So with variable encryption, either you can pass the variable name with its value, and you will get something like this, like DB password and then its value. So you can copy paste this in your playbook and you can use it. The next thing is, if you don't want to save your secret disk string in bash history, in that case what you are going to do is read it from command line or stdin, the second one command, that one. So it will prompt you for the stdin and you can just type in and it will give you the encrypted string like this. Yes, so I'm still talking about the variable encryption. With Ansible, you can have the variables in separate file. So it is not a lot of variable encryption, but I'm still saying it's a file encryption here, because you are saving all of your variables in a file and you are going to encrypt that file. And in Ansible playbook, you are going to put this file as your variables file and get the variable from this file instead of directly using the value. Yeah, so here the note is like, if you just want to edit the file, don't decrypt the file, because it will save your file in plain text, and means it's like maybe you will have your passwords or whatever encrypted data saved there, it is available in public Git repository if mistakenly you push that in Git repo. Yes, so now you encrypted the variables, you encrypted the files. How you can use that in playbook? The first one we already discussed, that is, you mention the variable name and the exclamation with vault and encrypted string. I had a hard time to understand the first one, because I just tried to copy paste it in my playbook, but it did not work. I need to actually use the task level variables. I need to separately copy it and then paste it. So I will show that to you in demonstration how I'm doing that. The next one is, yes, so likewise you use the vault DB password and playbook. You can add it in your playbook the another way. Now you got the variables encrypted, you got the files encrypted. The next thing is how you are going to pass the password. So very basic thing is you're going to use ask vault pass, that option, but it is not going to help you when you do the automation, because each and every time your script should not be waiting for the password to execute completely. You can use the vault password files, and there are multiple ways to do that. You can either save the password in separate file and pass it like vault password file, or it is also possible to provide the same parameter in ansible.cfg. Yeah, so that is again the one more problem. So if you are keeping that file in your Git repository, then yeah, so there is no use of Ansible Vault. Yes. Yeah, and there is one more option, that is Vault identity list. So in that case, it is possible to label the vault files, password files, using ID, and at the time of encryption or decryption, you can use the ID instead of the password file directly, or the path of password file. There is one more way, like environment variables. So we have that default vault password file variable, where you can export that as in a bash variable and give it a parameter of your, or take it as a parameter of your password file. Yeah, so here also I was little bit confused because I was having my identity list and I tried to rekey the file and it did not prompt me for existing password, and I was like, why? Means if this is going to happen, then anyone can change the password of my file and they can use it, but that is not the case. So it is going to ask you for the existing password, decrypt the file, and after that encrypt it again. Yeah, so you all already know the use cases here, so this is nothing new to you, maybe. And yes, the demo. Okay, I start with simple file encryption, Ansible file, Ansible word create. Can you see the error? So it is saying that the vault IDs, test password, and old are already available. So the thing is, if I even pass this one, it will sorry, I think just a minute. Yeah. So I don't like this behavior, but I'm not sure if this is bug or what. Can you see that? So I'm passing the password using ask vault password, and it is also accepting the password, but at the end it is saying that no, you have some vault IDs already present and it is not actually working on my password. So if I comment this out now, so now this is going to work. So I actually, yeah, so means I expect that if I explicitly say take the password from my side now, it should work instead of failing at the end. Sorry? Which one? Session test, okay. Yeah. Yeah. And if I go do it, and it works. Okay, so what I will do, I will again uncomment this one, and it works here, but not at the time of creation. So I'm not sure if this is the bug of Ansible or what. Okay. Okay, so I'm just touching a new file, new session test, and so create is not going to work with this one. Just yeah. So if you want to encrypt this one, then you need to use the encrypt one, and still I'm getting the same issue. Yeah, but what I expect is if I provide this one, yeah, it should override there. Yeah, because else it should stop before accepting the password itself. Yeah. Yeah, it fails. And it works. Okay, so we encrypted the password. Now, how we can encrypt the string? Ansible vault. Encrypt string. So if I just do this one, it also works. Yeah. Yeah. So you can you can actually copy this one to your playbook, and it should help you. And with this one, you also have the option. I'm not sure how much useful it is, but you can provide the name of that variable, and it will just append that variable name before this one. Yeah, so that, yeah. So yeah, the confusing part for me was this one. Yeah, so here if I directly copy paste this string to this variable, it does not work. It error out with JSON, and that's why I need to have the separate variable, encapsulate that, and then provide it there. So that's the problem I'm facing. I think it should work, but I'm not sure. Okay, yeah. So I also show you the rekey thing. We had that Ansible vault. Yeah, so this is successful. What I will do, cat, just a minute, vi ansible.cfg. Okay, so this is where I was getting confused. If I have the identity list already in ansible.cfg, it is going to ask me the new vault password directly. I was like, why it is not asking for the existing password? And it works. Yeah, so it reads the password from this list. Yeah, so it will go sequentially each and every vault ID label, and if anything matches there, it will stop and decrypt the file. Yeah, so that's sort of from my side. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Is there any key management I need to be aware of? Like when I use this, does any other Ansible control node also now have access to this? Or is it like everything is needed in the vault string, or does it have some key I need to export?
Yeah, so I'm not aware about if you have any centralized key management or something like this for this one, and I think you need to have access to those files if you are going to save the passwords specifically in files, and I'm not sure if you have any centralized management for that.
So like it just uses your password basically.
Yes.
So long as I have the password, any Ansible system will.
Yes.
Can we try encrypting it with a specific ID, vault ID?
Yeah.
Using that forever?
Yes. So what we
that's what I'd like to see.
so I'm just
Take the second one.
second one, okay. Pass.new. So this is the password here, okay. Ansible vault. So you mean encrypt or create? Anything should
You can create a new file.
create 1, 2, 3. Encrypt vault ID. It was what was the ID?
That's the file name. But the ID is in the CfG. I think so as well.
The password. And to decrypt that one, yeah.
We want to know if it's 1.2. Yes. It's a 1.2. And then you can decrypt it using the file or
What edit? Yeah, it works. Yeah.
So the 1.2 means that there is a vault ID as the log,
Yeah.
and we figured it out. So as soon as you use a vault ID, it becomes a 1.2. Yeah.
Yeah. Lookup plugin, no.
There's a lookup plugin for password store.
Yeah, not for vault. Because vault needs catch-22 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the first things in an Ansible run that happens is encrypting the vault.
Any more questions? Yeah. Okay, so you're saying that it does not work with the files and it works with the variables all the time? Yeah, so I'm already having that file like this one. Oh, okay. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, it's out of scope for me. Yeah, any more questions?
Yeah, the identity list. You use this like to separate responsibilities of people, so some people can access this kind of information, another one has a password for this kind of information.
Yeah, so what I understand from that is either way, so you can have the list of files which can have the password, but the identity list is like if you don't want to use that full path name, maybe file path name at the time of encryption, and suppose you are having 10 files and you specifically want to get the file encrypted or variable encrypted using one of that file, so it is easier to remember the vault IDs instead of using the full path or that file.
Maybe I have access to one vault file,
Yes.
the other one.
Yeah.
The only possibility to have two different files.
Yeah, and one more thing is, yeah, and yes, yeah, and yes, and important thing is it also adds that vault ID in the encrypted file. So suppose you are having around 100 password files and it is going to go sequentially to look for the password. Instead of that, if you have the vault ID in your file, it will be easier for Ansible to find out which file it should be using. Yeah.
Everything you said? Yes. Also, when I'm using a playbook that doesn't use the one side? Yes. Wow. Because one of the first things the playbook does is encrypt everything that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, any more questions? Yeah?
Guys, keep my notes on this. Another question?
Sorry, I am unable to hear you properly. I am unable to get you.
How do you handle the fact that you're supposed to produce a tool, password file, when you're using a CICD tool? Because if the password has been done, you have to find a way to search to find for the tool to use. Then remove it after you can get it.
Yeah, so this sort of complicated thing because yes, you need to provide the password file, but I'm not sure. Means,
CICD tools have an option to supply passwords and then they are stored somewhere and given as an environment variable to the tool running after that.
okay.
So you can pick them up and insert them.
Besides that, you can also choose
Does that answer your question? Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Cool. Thanks once again.
Yeah. Thank you.